Hey, Professor Kuhn. So I'm at work today and just taking a quick break to get this assignment done. And so I thought I would just kind of get comfortable here in one of our rooms at the residential facility and go ahead and do my book review. Um, I had planned on writing the paper because I am more of a writer, but time has gotten away from me. And so I thought I'd go ahead and do this. Obviously, the book is called Manna in the Wilderness of AIDS. It's by Kenwyn Smith. And you'll have to excuse my book. It's full of stickies and notes. But I thought it would be a good idea to get that, go ahead and take some notes and things on what I wanted to say. The first question that you wanted us to answer was what the basic premise of the book is about. So to kind of sum it up, it's about an organization that Kenwyn was part of creating called Manna, and it was established in January of 1990 in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And here on page 4, he states that our mission was clear and straightforward, and it's to ensure that in the Philadelphia region, no man, woman, or child who was homebound and ill with HIV or AIDS ever went hungry again. So that is the basic premise of it. And he tells a lot of stories in here. It's a really good read. But I'll just move on to the next question here. Which chapters did I find most challenging? The first one that I wanted to kind of go over was chapter 6, Importing Pain. This particular chapter dealt a lot with staff disputes and having to dismiss staff, and in general, some ugly internal issues that were going on within the organization, as well as, some issues with volunteers and things. He also told a story of how they had gotten into a kind of a little dispute with another organization that was assisting AIDS patient or clients, AIDS clients, excuse me, and how that got kind of ugly, and they wound up having to really take the high road there. So, but that was the first one that was that was challenging for me. I've dealt with some of that myself, managerial skills. Managing people in my organization was very difficult for me. As a matter of fact, I hired somebody on to help me with some of that aspect. And it was said amongst our organization that she was the bad cop and I was the good cop. So I tend to be a little too merciful, probably. Let's see, the other one was chapter 8, which was titled Growth Amid Turbulence. And then this one, he talked about having to change direction and realizing the difference between the vision or the original vision and what reality was, and how to figure out how to pivot and to make things work. They also talked a lot here about defining roles, and how it was really important. How when they had first come into it, they didn't have any specific policies and procedures in place. That's really important when you have an organization, especially as it grows. And then, of course, he talked a lot in this chapter about the constant concern about money issues. That was always kind of an issue. And as far as that chapter is concerned, the reason why it stood out to me is because I dealt with the same thing in my organization, just basic growing pains. I went into it thinking that it was going to look like this, and it turned out that our clients were a totally different demographic and population than what I originally had and thought that they were going to be. And so we had to change up a lot of our stuff, a lot of our the way that we dealt with the clients, the way that we thought about the clients, and things like that. So We had to create policies and sometimes change policies, change rules for the clients and things like that, just because of the different clientele that we were getting. And of course, the constant, never-ending stress about money is always just something that's always being held over your head. All right, point number 3. How has the reading of this book affected your thinking about macro practice? So, let me see. It hasn't really. It hasn't really changed my thinking about macro practice. I think that macro practice is really necessary, obviously, in social work. But a couple of things that he talked about in the book that stood out to me were the topics of like hard work, how hard work pays off, how things start small and then they can blossom into something much greater if you stick with it. And also how this, doing ministry is a calling. If you're doing it for the wrong reasons, it's you're not going to stick with it. You're not going to be able to stick with it. And the last thing that kind of affected me was talking about the seasons in ministry, and just realizing that there are different seasons in ministry. It's feast, famine. You have really good times, and then you have really really bad times, and that's okay. Those are seasons that we go through in life, and that I believe we're always supposed to be learning through those different seasons. The next point that you asked us to talk about here was, in our opinion, what did the author say that I find controversial in the Christian or secular community, and why? So I wrote down a couple of things. I wanted to say that while I appreciated his emphasis on race relations and cultural differences, I somewhat disagreed with his inclusion of openly homosexual volunteers in his organization. And the reason for that is because because it was a faith-based ministry, and I personally believe that the Bible is clear about homosexuality being a sin. And so, even if it wasn't homosexual, if he was using volunteers that were, say, I don't know, openly cheating on their wife, so openly adulterers, or someone who was a drunkard, was getting drunk all the time and was coming in drunk. I just don't think that would be appropriate, because these people that are your volunteers, they're going out, they're meeting people in the community, and they are some of the faces of your ministry. So that was challenging for me. I know that he had a strong desire for the volunteers to relate to the clients, but as far as being representatives of the ministry and the church and the organization as a whole, I was somewhat concerned with that. I think he actually gave a statistic that I think he said 50% of the volunteers were homosexuals. And so, me personally, that's an issue that I kind of take to heart. And then the last question that you had in your opinion: what was the author's greatest strength and weakness in supporting their beliefs? And I'm going to give you some quotes. Actually, there's 2 more points here. So let's start with that one. Strengths and weaknesses. Let's see. Okay. Pre-planning is what I put. There's a quote at the bottom of page 145. It says, initially there were so few of us at Manna that everybody did everything. Roles were loosely defined and staff worked for low pay. After a couple of years, we could see that Manna needed to do some institution building. So that was one of the weaknesses that I saw in what he was trying to do here, was that it doesn't seem like they did a whole lot of pre-planning, or if they did, they maybe didn't expect such a boom in growth, and they weren't well prepared for it. The next thing was a lack of structure. A lack of structure. Let me see, where did I put that? Here's a quote. The quote's on page 152, the first full paragraph there. It was hard for Gwendolyn to gauge the quality of the job she was doing. On the one hand, Mana was being formed, hundreds were being fed, and Mana's ethos was energetic, participatory, and transforming. Yet no matter how much money was raised, there never seemed enough. Staff were worked to the bone, and the demands grew so fast we were always playing catch up. Right? So a lack of structure. Another weakness that I saw in here was a lack of board diversity, and he talked about that. I'm sorry, I don't have a quote for that one. Yeah, I don't have a quote for that. Well, maybe I do. I don't know. Sorry, I didn't write it down. Oh yeah, I did. The bottom of page 164, it says, the ism that caught us most by surprise was racism, especially as we tried to diversify the board. This stressed us because we fell into a classical organizational pattern. We even noticed what we were doing but seemed unable to avoid it. So they were trying to diversify the board, and then they had that one lady that joined, but then she quit because she felt like she was the token black person. So as far as strengths, clearly throughout the book, the volunteers, I mean, the stories of the volunteers and stuff was just amazing. On page 65 at the top there, it says by 1996, Mana had 650 volunteers working weekly, an enormous number of helpers. And then below that, it says while volunteers were Mana's greatest strength, it took energy to have that strength be realized. They came from every corner of the city. Some ran major corporations, others were unemployed. Some were full-time homemakers, others were but a welfare check away from being homeless. Some were in the prime of life, and others would soon become Mana clients themselves. So that that was pretty awesome to me. Um, they had a lot of volunteers. They were able to get a lot of people to jump on board, and that's just really cool. Another one of their strengths obviously was their faith. The correlation between the story of the Israelites leaving captivity and being, wandering in the wilderness for 40 years, receiving the manna from God and all that kind of stuff. Moses in the burning bush, he talked about that in here. He talked about miracles, lots of miracles. And the thing that I thought was really cool was how he talked a lot about how it changed the lives of the clients, but it also changed the lives of the volunteers. And I think that's really important for us to think about when we have our organizations. We're trying to do everything for the clients, but a lot of times it's the clients who wind up touching our lives and changing our lives. Let's see. Discuss any impact this book may or will have on your life. Yeah, absolutely. So basically, it really helped to reemphasize my understanding of my personal calling and my desire to help others. And it reminded me of a lot of the good times and the bad times that I had when I was running my organization. We've pretty much put it on hold right now, but it brought a lot of good memories up, and I could also commiserate with a lot of the things that he was saying when he was talking about troubles and having issues within the organization. And I wanted to say, sorry, I have some notes here. I wanted to say that it mostly encouraged me just to keep moving forward. I know that God has called me to try to do more of something more on the prevention stage, or in the prevention area. as working with women and children, as we were seeing a lot of women that had made lots and lots of mistakes and were like, not too far gone, because you're never too far gone with God, but they were just way down the road and had made a lot of mistakes and had a lot to come back from. And I really want to get in on that prevention side of things now through being able to provide counseling and support, um, to hopefully help them to heal from their traumas and things so that they don't go forward making more mistakes in their lives. So anyway, that is my book review of Manna in the Wilderness of AIDS. I thought it was a great book. Thank you for introducing me to it, and I look forward to seeing you in class. All right, have a great day.